So I've done a video like this in the past talking about the world's largest army in history, but this one I have found to be even more accurate, that includes even more countries, as well as I love this category here on the right hand side. This is highlighting army sizes based off the total population. This is a really important thing to take note of. I'm going to be talking about that a lot here. So we're starting the video off in 1825, a notable year. So this is like a decade or so after the Napoleonic Wars. This is we're about to enter the Victorian era. Right now, the nation with the largest army is the Qing dynasty at almost 1 million men. Then we have the Russian Empire that's beginning to grow. We've got Austria. This is still before France and Italy. So again, sometimes I see these like data maps and these data scale videos and stuff like that, and I'm seeing like 1825, and they're showing the nation of Germany. Germany didn't even exist. You have to show Prussia. We're seeing 2 Sicilies. Good. I'm not seeing Italy. We're seeing Sardinia. Good. I'm not seeing Italy. And Saxony. This is all great stuff. Look at America. It's hard to see America, but they're at 11,000 men in 1825. Now, this is after the War of 1812. It's like a decade after those conflicts ended. So obviously America's got a lot of catching up to do. First of all, there's just not that many people that physically live in North America right now. That's why you're definitely not going to see Canada. You're not going to see Mexico yet. Eventually things will build back up. But right now in the new world, they don't have the numbers. So the main chart shows active military personnel by country, while the side chart shows their size as a percentage of each country's population. So look at Denmark go. 2%. Man, you can really feel the threat that Denmark feels from that German Federation. Remember, Napoleon comes and destroys the Holy Roman Empire. There's a German Confederation going on before we see German unification. Okay, so let's go ahead and press play here. So you're going to notice the theme in this video. Very often you are going to see either Russia or China as having the largest armies for basically the entirety of this video. There's going to be certain key moments in history that I'm going to explain. It's another reason why I like to do this video over again, because as I grow and as I learn and as I force myself to talk about these topics literally every single day, I can provide even more insight than I've had in the past. So anyways, so China's number one, and China's they just have the sheer amount of people that China has is just insane. Now, one thing this video is going to do is it's going to group up a lot of the UK together, the British Empire at the time. So the British, as they gain, I don't think they're going to separate British Raj, but we'll see about that. That's key because, again, those army members, that's all following under the British Empire. It's kind of crazy that, like, the Qing dynasty is number 1 in terms of sheer numbers, but they're not even ranking in terms of percentage of population. That is how much the Qing Empire had. Even the Russian Empire, the Russian Empire is 3rd. So it really shows the sheer people that China has, and China has always had. So boom, it's 1828. Russia's they're getting a bigger and bigger profile out here. Look at Portugal. They are briefly number 2 in terms of percentage. But yeah, Portugal is facing, Portugal is, they've seen better days. Let's be honest. They've seen definitely better days. They're not too far behind Spain. Now, keep in mind, we're talking purely armies. We are not talking navies. And so you shouldn't be surprised to see the UK, even though they're about to have the world's largest empire, they've never really been a big army place. That's why like I said at the very beginning, you are always, for this whole video, you're going to see 2 empires constantly number 1. And that's either the Russian Empire or the Qing dynasty, because they are army nations. They're not naval-based nations. First of all, they don't live on an island. It really helps when you live on an island. And speaking of which, Japan's not even here. Bro, Japan is not even here. How crazy is that? So there's just certain nations you're going to see prioritize army. When Germany unifies, Germany's going to be very army-based. Italy needs to kind of go half and half because Italy is like in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, so you don't see them have like the biggest army ever. Look at Sweden rise up in 1831. France has always traditionally been the big army power in Europe, typically speaking. I mean, Austria's not too far behind them, but France they're known for their army, and army's great because you got to fight the continental foes in Europe, but the problem for France is they're not going to be able to, ever defeat the British if they don't actually build a bigger navy. And that's the thing. The British are going to have the biggest navy by far for the next 100 years. Mexico has entered the list, and Brazil too. Where the hell is America at? What is going on? I don't even see the U.S. So the U.S. isn't even on here yet still. But again, maybe this is because of standing army questions. Now, just wait for the American Civil War that's about to take place in 3 decades. Sweden dropped out percentage-wise. So the percentage category is important to look at because more than likely, if you see a nation randomly pop off, it's because they're in the middle of a conflict. They are literally in the middle of a war right now. Wow. Crazy to see the Netherlands only have an army of 32,000 at this point. Meanwhile, they basically border France, who is, well, they don't border France, but they're very close to bordering France. Belgium borders France. Maybe that's a better example. Belgium has 20,000. France has 288,000. Now, Belgium's independence, I believe, is guaranteed by the UK at this point, so they can't just walk into Belgium. That's important to note. So Qing was briefly number 1. Now the Russians are number 1. Each empire fields large standing armies prepared to defend their territories if tension rises. Okay, so maybe the US just doesn't have a strong standing army at this moment, in this moment of time. But yeah, the Qing dynasty is about to enter their century of humiliation right here. Wow. The Russians were clearly in a pretty big battle because their standing army is declining heavily right now. Percentage-wise, they're under 1%, and then so is the French. Ooh, look at Tunis go. I didn't expect to see Tunis pop up in this video at all. Denmark still consistently having the largest based off of their overall size. They were clearly feeling probably pretty threatened by Prussia. It's 1838. Here go the Ottomans. They were briefly up there. The Austrians actually had, by pure numbers, had the Austrians had the French beat out. That's what I meant to say. I was saying that right, and then I second-guessed myself. The Second Egyptian-Ottoman War in 1839. So the collapse of the Ottomans are beginning, but Egypt challenges Ottoman rule in a major war, forcing Europe intervention. Yeah, so the Egyptians, I was just watching a video about that. It was a History Matters video about why did the Egyptians not take more land. At this point in European politics, and I guess world politics, the idea is just to keep everything balanced. And as soon as someone looks like they're tipping the scales and they're getting a little bit too powerful or they're taking too much at, the Europeans kind of propped up the Ottoman Empire for a long time because they were just fearful if the Ottomans collapse and if there's a void of power there, then a big one, the Russians are going to take up all that power, or the Austrians are going to go and seal in that power vacuum. So a lot of the philosophy at this time is just keep the balance of power, keep things split up. That happens up until World War I and everything just breaks down to chaos. But it worked for a minute there, I guess. So everyone will team up just to keep the major powers kind of split. So yeah, that's 1841, 1839. That event is now over. We're seeing again Russia and Qing dynasty go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The Crimean War is soon coming up, where the UK and France is going to help the Ottomans defeat Russia too. It's funny how often I didn't even realize the Ottomans were kind of propped up for so long by those powers. Look at Sardinia go, 35,000. You got to think about world population at the time too. I mean, that's why the percentages added to the corner here is really important because, Mecklenburg at 0.8. Didn't expect to see them on this map. Accurate flags. Another reason why I really like this video. We have accurate flags. Finally, the Americans have showed up. It is about time. But yeah, keep in mind when you look at the sheer numbers, the sheer raw power, population is not what we have today. 200 years ago, we did not have 8 billion people on Earth, if that was not obvious enough. So the percentages are important here in the corner to weigh. So like if the Netherlands are at 1%, then we can actually do the math. I don't think I'm going to do that math because that would be pretty crazy. The Netherlands are at 32,000, so they have 300,000. That's 10%, Drew. They have more than 300,000. Is it 3 million? Something like that? It's 1846. I'm not sure if I did that math. Oh, look at Paraguay. Oh, because Paraguay's in the middle of the Triple Alliance War, I believe. So Paraguay is currently fighting Argentina, Brazil, and Bolivia, is it? And they're about to have all their male population die. 2.5%. To be fair, if I was fighting 3 surrounding powers, I'd want it more than 2.5%. I understand that you only have, you got to put men out there, and then you also have to put military-age men out there, so you might not have that many. Also, some are not willing to fight. You got to put them in prison and stuff. Not very fun. All right, so Russia, again, trying to catch back up to Qing Dynasty. It's now the mid-1800s, or the 18th century. Austria and France are also going back and forth. Meanwhile, the UK is just trying to wield a big enough army to kind of to be able to do stuff. But at this point, they're really just focused on their navy. Russia intervention in Hungary. The Russian Empire intervenes militarily in Hungary at Austria's request to suppress the Hungarian Revolution. Oh, that I was also just learning about that as well. Yes. So remember, this is when Austria-Hungary was very big. It's called Austrian Empire, but it's going to become Austria-Hungary. But yeah, they're very big. They're a very big power. Holds power in the Balkans and things like that. To see Portugal so low, look at this. Portugal had 24,000. Meanwhile, their colony has already passed them up, Brazil. That's crazy. And then Denmark is now not wielding as big of a percentage. They're actually falling off the list. Sad, Denmark, sad. But yeah, they're chilling. Bavaria doing bigger and bigger. Look at that. So look at how many German states that are about to combine. No wonder Europe was freaking out, because Prussia's about to combine in 20 years with Bavaria, with also Saxony. And then obviously you see Italy come together, two Sicilies and Sardinia coming together to form Italy. The United States... Oh, wait. Russian Empire... Oh, here's the Crimean War. So Russian Empire engages in fierce conflict with a coalition of the Ottomans, France, Britain, and Sardinia was also involved in that. Yeah, there was fears that Russia was getting a little bit too powerful over there. And so the Russian army is really exploding because, well, they're having to fight all these foes. And we're actually seeing what's interesting, they were still gaining, right? Was that right? France was actually losing some of their army, and so was Austria-Hungary briefly. Okay, so now the Crimean War is about to end. And now the Russians don't need as big of a standing army right here. But the UK really exploded that standing army, 1.3. They finally entered, I think this over here. Oh, Russian Empire had jumped to 2.68% of their total population. That's how worried they were, which, I mean, I'd be worried too. This is 4 big old forces coming to fight you at the very same time. Now, the Russians were a threat. They were a very big empire. Look at Hanover go. So Hanover is here. It's 1858. Now, 2 big things are happening in the 1860s. Not only are we going to see the American Civil War, but we're also going to see the French invasion of Mexico as they put a Habsburg in charge. Look at Haiti. Whoa, Haiti at 2.6. Wasn't expecting that. France, Sweden up here. Here we go, American Civil War. So now the standing army is going to explode out of the U.S., and you get to see a brief flash of our power. You get to see a brief flash of our power as we get a standing army of over 1 million men, and more American troops, more Americans are going to die in this conflict than any other conflict combined, because Americans are dying on both sides. So look at that. The Americans have a standing army of over 1 million. Now, that's coming, I think, from both the CSA and America. I think they're combining both, if I'm making the right estimates. Look at Paraguay go to 7.3%. Is that because Paraguay lost all of their male population? So now whenever the Paraguay people need an army, they're basically, it's like they only have 10% of their male population what they used to have. So any sort of army is going to be 7% of their entire nation. That's insane if that's actually the case. I think that's what we're seeing here. Okay, so the American Civil War is wrapping up, but do keep in mind, where was Mexico at? I'm going to need to back this up. Mexico, did you just get your army obliterated by the French? The French are losing right here. Look, they are losing troops. Yeah, I don't even see where Mexico is. Okay. Well, anyways, the Americans are now done. We have reunited, and we're going to fall off, and we're going to be like, hey, it's not going to fall off completely off the map. Here goes Mexico again, 37,000. France took advantage of what the chaotic situation the U.S. was dealing with. We weren't going to honor the Monroe Doctrine, I guess. And yeah, they thought they could pull a fast one. That did not work out for that Habsburg, though, in charge. Here goes Prussia. So technically, Italy is... Where's Italy at? Italy is already formed. So they're at 300,000. Look at the Italians briefly for a moment there. Having a bigger army than both Austria-Hungary and the UK. And then here comes Prussia. And this completely resets the balance of power. And like I said, Europe really didn't like that. Europe was willing to all team up to prop up the dead guy. In this example, it's the Ottomans. But then all of a sudden, Prussia beats France in a war for unification. And everyone's like, oh, snap. Franco-Prussian War. There it is. So they are able to unify all the German states. They come together. They beat France, they shocked the world, and bam, now we have the German Empire. So this is now kind of a resetting of what we knew before. The UK and France, definitely not fans of this. Oh, look at Denmark. Yeah, Denmark, you're definitely going to want to wield a big army now, because now you have the giant German Empire at your borders, which is pretty terrifying. Yeah, so now we're starting to see percentage-wise, like, the powers that you would expect to see. Well, maybe not Denmark as much, but, you know, France, Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, Russia, the UK, Italy, even Belgium to an extent. Okay, here goes Greece. So it's 1873. We now have a new player in town. Russia and the Qing Dynasty continue to go back and forth and back and forth. Qing Dynasty is about to explode in 1812. Oh, and then here goes the Empire of Japan. Thank you for finally joining us, Japan. I thought you were going to be late. I thought you didn't even know there was a competition. So the Japanese are like, hey, we see what all these Europeans are doing. We can do that too. Let's go ahead and form an Asian empire with some European influence, I guess. We can do that. Ottoman Egypt doing pretty good, but nowhere near the size of Ottoman Empire. That's for sure. It's 1875. Mexico and Brazil still kind of down here on the list. Crazy to see the Netherlands so high up. Remember, the Netherlands at this point, they have like all of Indonesia, right? Or they're at least about to get all of Indonesia. I actually don't know if they have that quite yet in 1876, but they're about to colonize all of those islands. You would think you need... Well, you know what? The Netherlands also kind of a similar situation. They kind of focus more on their navy as well. Iran in 1877. So we have the Russo-Ottoman War for just a brief moment, just 1 year. The Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire fight over the control of the Balkans and the fate of Christian populations. So yeah, that is going to, I guess, make the Russian Empire decline a little bit. So Qing Dynasty once again is going to come up. Look at the Swedes go at 1.08. Now this is not only Sweden, this is also Sweden-Norway. So this is, yeah, for a long time, Norway was under control of Denmark, and I think in 1815, Norway is then a lesser power, lesser partner under Sweden. I believe they're called Swedish Norway, but right now they're just labeled as Sweden. But yeah, so they're able to get, I guess, bigger than expected percentage-wise. You can kind of see when, like, the world's at peace. This is going to be very interesting once we enter the world wars, because these percentages are going to go nuts. All these nations are going to have very, very high percentages. Look at Spain go, 0.94. So we haven't seen the Spanish-American War just yet. That's 20 years away. Ooh, here we go, the Greeks, 3%. Greek territorial expansion, 1881. The Kingdom of Greece gains these areas from the Ottomans, expanding its territory and strengthening its position in 1881. And I guess that's already over, so Greece doesn't need as big of an army. Here goes the Kingdom of Romania rising up. They're looking a little thin over there. But we have, what is this, 9 countries that are just sitting at over 100,000 men. 1884 is also when the Berlin Conference starts, but yeah, we're going to talk about the Sino-French War. So Qing Dynasty and France fight over the control of Vietnam. So this is when the French can take over Southeast Asia. They make it known as Indochina. That does not have any complications at all over the next century, in the 20th century, with the whole Vietnam War. No, France, I'm sure the Vietnamese are going to love this. Not that the Vietnamese loved Qing Dynasty. They definitely didn't. In fact, they only briefly started beefing with the West and America. The Vietnamese have been beefing with China for far, far longer, and we're really seeing that now here in 2025. It's like, oh, their beef was with China the whole time. I don't know why we try to insert ourselves into that little rivalry, hilariously enough. Anyways, okay, so Spain, again, over 100,000. Give it to Spain. Spain, not typically seen as a major power at this time. Spain is definitely not considered, by the Victorian era, they're kind of just there. Even the Ottomans, I would say, hold a bit more power than Spain does at this time. But man, 150,000 troops, you got to give them credit. But yeah, Spain has lost a lot of their colonies. I won't say all of it because they're about to lose all of it in 15 years. But Qing Dynasty is still number one. Yeah, the Qing Dynasty is getting humiliated by the Europeans. And also, again, like I said at the very same time, the Berlin Conference is happening and all the Europeans have completely carved out Africa. And the Germans got some stuff. The French got a lot of stuff. The UK got a lot of stuff. Man, Mexico is still only sitting at 28,000. That's kind of crazy. Again, you don't need a large standing army, though, when you're not at war. So that's something to take note of. But, okay, it's 1888, and we're getting closer and closer to World War I. There's so much data on this map. It's crazy. I can literally watch this video over and over again, and I'm going to find little details, different details to mark about. When I review these videos back, because I always review my videos back, I'm going to be like, oh man, I wish I would have made a mention of this or that or this. But yeah, look at Japan go. 80,000 standing army. Japan is about to gain control over the island of Taiwan. Japan's really focused on their navy right now. Not as big focused. But yeah, Japan takes Taiwan, or Formosa at this time, pretty early on. Pretty early. 1892, so we're entering the 20th century. Romania getting higher and higher percentage-wise in terms of their standing army. And we're beginning... I am so fascinated with this part of the geopolitical world. I love learning about the early 1900s. It's becoming like a new favorite pastime for me. I love all history. I do tend to like more recent history than like ancient history, that's for sure. But I've been more and more fascinated with like this time period. Well, you need a couple more bigger events. So, well, first of all, we're doing the first Sino-Japanese War, which is a big event. But we're going to do the Russo-Japanese War. We're going to see the Libyan War. We're going to see the Spanish-American War. The year 1900 is just fascinating on a geopolitical scale. If you look at the map, if you look at the world, such an interesting place. These chains of alliances, the world's divided into arguably 7 powers, I guess, but maybe even less than that, or maybe more. It all depends on how wide you go. But yeah, the world, there's not that many physical countries that exist. I mean, that's the funny thing, is at this time in the 1900s, this is pretty much all there is. Maybe let's go like another 20 years, and like so many nations have either been colonized or eaten up. There's just not that many. It's crazy because now we live in a world where there's over 100 nations. There's over 150 nations that are currently independent. So yeah, this is the first Sino-Japanese War. This is basically Japan filling the void that the Qing dynasty is not able to do. When typically China was the big threat in Asia for centuries and centuries now, Japan is now rising up and taking that vacuum, filling in the vacuum of power. So the war control over the Korean influence, obviously the Japanese are going to win out here. The Empire of Japan's victory shocks the world, forcing Qing dynasty to cede Taiwan and recognize Korean independence. And now they're about to shock the world again when Japan gets a victory over Russia. And look at Russia have such a massive army. But that army is mostly stationed in the western side, not the eastern side where all the fighting is going to take place. So that's going to make things very difficult. Look at France, standing army of 1.6. They still have a bigger army than Germany, which they kind of need to because they just took an L from Germany. So I'm sure they're feeling threatened. Look at Italy, Austria, Hungary, Spain, who has a bigger army than Japan for now. The Ethiopian Empire. Oh, that's right. There's going to be an Italian-Ethiopian war the first time. And it's finally, yeah, there you go, 1.9, Ethiopia. Let's go, Ethiopia. It's year 1900. Things are looking scary. They're looking like something bad is going to happen. Oh, the Spanish American. Are we going to talk about that? One thing I do like about these videos, because I reviewed another video, is they don't talk about the typical topics that every video talks about. Like, I'm going to bring it up, but I'm glad that they're bringing up. I feel like in the corner, the bottom right-hand corner here, they don't talk about, or they just bring up maybe lesser-known events. And I love that because I can bring up the Spanish-American War. That's an easy one. All Americans like to talk about that. So right here in 1902, we just took the final, basically all the final Spanish colonies. We took Cuba, the Philippines, and Puerto Rico. And we still actually don't even have a bigger army than them, but we're about to have a bigger navy. I'm sure the Navy-wise, yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, Qing dynasty explodes in 1912, I believe. So here's the Russo-Japanese War. Japan again is going to shock the world. This is for the battle for Manchuria and Korea, I guess. Yeah. So as you can see, the Japanese are really getting a big foothold in continental Asia. And Qing dynasty, meanwhile, they have over 1 million, and Russia's got 1.2. But that huge standing Russian army is not going to help them out in this situation. But yeah, look at the percentages. You can see as the wars are really gearing up. You've got a couple Balkan wars that are taking place. The war for Libya with Italy, it's 1910. We're 4 years away. Here goes Serbia. Look at Serbia go. It's all going to be because of Serbia. Shooting an archduke from Austria-Hungary. There you go, Ethiopia. Keeping that population high. Yeah, so they are including everything, all the army is, we're not separating Canada into the British Raj, into Australia. It's all under the UK, which I kind of like. But yeah, that's why the UK remains high up there. But you can really see that, like, again, the UK is not known for their army. They weren't necessarily... Now, they have a bigger army than the Austro-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, and that's impressive. But I think a lot of that is due to their overseas colonies at this point. It's 1911, and basically Germany and Austria-Hungary and the Ottomans are going to fight literally everybody else. That's literally what's about to happen here. They thought they were going to have Italy on their side, but look at how balanced the world is. I think that's another fascination I have about this time period, is the world does feel pretty balanced, and it has been balanced arguably for 100 years since Napoleon invaded Russia and got in, and then he came back a couple times, 2 times. But basically, Europe has kept the balance of power for 100 years now, and now it's about to explode. But things seem fair. It looks like it could be anyone's game. Boom, here goes the Republic of China, like I mentioned, 1912. Look at Bulgaria go, 4.2%. Okay, so is this the Second Balkan War? Damn, Bulgaria? Yeah, Second Balkan War, 1913. Bulgaria fights its former allies over... Yeah, this is so funny. I'll never forget one of those memes. The First Balkan War, the Balkan nations unite to defeat the Ottomans. And there's this meme where all the Balkans are celebrating. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. I really hope one of us doesn't do something incredibly, incredibly stupid right now. And that's literally how, I don't exactly know how the meme goes, but that's how I read the meme. And then it just shows Bulgaria choosing to do the Second Balkan War. So yeah, the Bulgarians decide to fight. It's the Balkans. It is the Balkans. Look at Germany go. So now with the collapse of China, and there's the warlord period. It's all a mess. It's going to take China a minute. This is going to be a brief time in history where you do not see China in that number 1 or 2 spot in terms of their standing army. So it's going to take some time here. And now we have World War I. It is 1914. Bammo. Now, keep in mind the percentages. Look at Bulgaria, 7.4%. That's crazy. Now, Bulgaria's percentages has to be high because they don't have very many people living in Bulgaria. So, not surprised, but that's very impressive to see nations get all the way up to 7 to even close to 10% of their total population. Is amazing that they can do that. Now, just wait for the world wars, though. So, Europe plunges into war as empires and alliances collide after the assassination of Archduke. So, 1914 still chill. We have the Christmas Treaty, and we don't know how intense this is going to be. But we will learn. We is gonna learn. Now, Italy and USA are not a part of World War I just yet. They are not a part of World War. But man, look at France and UK immediately get massive standing armies, over 3 million, literally unheard of numbers until now. Unheard of numbers. 4 million, and Russia is dropping to 1.5. That's crazy. Russia, it's time to do something now. Germany is literally fighting the top 3 armies. And they're going to hold their own for 5 years. How impressive is that? Now, mind you, they have a lot of help from Austria-Hungary too. So it's 2 million, but they're still fighting. They're still fighting so much. The Ottomans are a significant force, but not all that much. Ethiopia is keeping a pretty high army. Spain remains neutral in both world wars, yet they got a pretty big standing army. I mean, you don't need to remind the skinny mustache man from Germany that. That's actually not true. I mean, I don't know why I'm bringing up Spain in World War II and Germany. There's lots of things that say that Adolf did not want Spain to be a part of the Axis because he didn't think the Spanish got to go through a civil war. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. Look at Switzerland go. Even Switzerland, who's going to remain neutral, got to make sure you force that neutrality. You got to make sure that, hey, if people come in, we're going to make you pay. We realize you can invade us, but we're going to make it really painful to invade us. So France is at 5.1. Look at how massive the French army is. That is the thing. Even though the French don't have sheer numbers, or at least they used to, in this moment they do, the French have a lot of quality troops right here. Very quality men. Russian Empire is coming back up. Look at this. Look at this, bro. Germany is literally fighting the top 3. Again, Austria-Hungary, you got to give Austria-Hungary some credit here. But Germany fighting 2 different fronts. France on one side, Russia on the other. At least Austria-Hungary just has to worry about mostly Russia and then Italy when Italy joins in. But Italy, there's not much... I mean, Austria-Hungary is naturally more defensible because they have the Alps out towards their west. So here we go. We're entering 1916. Look at how the Russians, it always takes the Russians a minute to get going. World War I and World War II. Russians got 7.5, and they're still going to lose. And now they're going to lose because they're in the middle of a civil war. The Russian Revolution breaks out. But that's still crazy. They're at 8.2 million. They're at 9 million. That's crazy. You thought France and the UK were up there. And yet the Germans are still going to punish them. Man, Austria-Hungary, they've been losing a lot of men. Ottomans, are you even trying, bro? It's been 2 years. You haven't. Where are your dudes at? Where are your dudes? That's so crazy. Bam, Russian Empire is at 10 million. The second place nation, their ally France, is only half of that. Over 30 countries joined the conflict with total casualties around, what is that, 30 million? Can we move this? Oh, 20 million dead and 20 million wounded. Absolutely insane. Wow, I just now forgot to look at the percentages. Okay, it's 1917. We're at like the height of the war. France is at 15%. Meanwhile, Russia has a standing army of 10 million, and they aren't even in the top 5 in terms of their percentages. That's how many people the damn Russians have. Now remember, this is a much bigger Russia than today. Don't be confused about the Russian flag here. This is a Russian empire that is the biggest we've ever seen out of the Russians, I guess I should say. You know, like right now, Putin's Russia doesn't have all of Central Asia like Kazakhstan, doesn't have the Caucasus Mountain regions like Azerbaijan and Georgia. They don't have Ukraine and Belarus. This is a Russian empire with Finland even. So, and the Baltics and things like that. So, yeah, this is crazy. They're only at 5%. If the Russians were to go to where the French are and get a standing army of 15%, they'd have a standing army of 30 million. That's crazy. At this time in the world, unbelievable. Look at the Bulgarians. Okay, the Bulgarians get absolutely ravaged for a second there, but the Bulgarians were holding their own for a minute. They were, obviously holding their own with the Central Powers, with Germany, the Ottomans, Austria-Hungary. But yeah, so now the Russian Revolution officially begins. The Russians are going to get kicked out of the Civil War. It's going to be a complete mess over there. And it's basically going to be just Germany versus France. Oh, look at the Italians. Yet the Italians decided to obviously join the Entente. And now the U.S. joins World War I. And we bring over shotguns, and the Germans don't like it. And yeah, wow, Bulgaria's at 14%. Germany's at 11%. These percentages are actually rising up to even... I mean, people are dying population-wise, and obviously soldiers are dying. Yet these percentages are just naturally going up and up and up. And Germany, briefly at the very end of World War I, has the biggest standing army, incredibly enough. Yet they're still going to lose this. It's 1919, and the war is officially over. Bam. Italy has a big old army for a brief second there. Look at, for a brief second in this video, Italy's number 2. What is this, the Roman Empire all over again? So we just lost 3 members all at the same time. 3 members of the Central Powers and Bulgaria, I guess you could say. We're losing Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. So what a weird brief flash where France and Italy are at the top, but now, of course, Russia's going to explode again. The Russian Revolution takes place. The Bolsheviks fight the whites and other factions for control over Russia. So even though World War ends, it does not mean conflict is ended. This is actually a chaos period for Europe. So many, you got the war for Turkey, you got the independence war for Poland. Oh, Poland's entered, that's right. So Poland is fighting the Soviets right now. Italy's dropping down. China is fighting itself. And now percentages are not back to more normal time periods. But just wait till World War II. Just wait for the sequel. Yeah, so Germany's now known as the Weimar Republic. They're not even really allowed to have a huge army right now. Afghanistan, look at Afghanistan go with 50,000. What the hell? Why is Afghanistan up here? Kind of surprised about that. The Kingdom of Yugoslavia, because of the collapse of Austria-Hungary. So Yugoslavia has joined the fight. Romania is going to also have a little bit more power. USSR. So the Great Purges are going to happen. They're going to do messed up things to Ukraine. China's slowly regaining. We're going to have the second Sino-Japanese war that takes place. Estonia at 1.8. Yeah, so all the Baltic bros know that it's inevitable that the USSR is going to come back after them. The Emirate of Kabul. What the hell? Okay, 1925. So yeah, I mean, for America, this is a pretty good time. For a lot of the world, it's still really chaotic. The 1920s. We're right now still, doing the great. What am I? I'm blanking right now. We're rich. We're rich as hell. It's the 20s. Everyone's got money. It's fantastic. Dang, It's unheard of in the last 200 years. The USSR has dropped below 1 million men. Only 500,000 in 1927. So the Chinese Civil War. The Chinese Civil War has begun. Nationalists and the communists fight over control of China. So that's why they're gonna have a bigger, and they're using the old flag of Taiwan because this is the side that's actually going to lose, and they're gonna escape to Taiwan. Look at Albania at 1.8%, 1.1%. Mussolini is currently in charge of Italy, by the way, and Albania is gonna get taken over. Oh yeah, Czechoslovakia is a thing. The war ends in 1949 with a communist victory. Well, yeah, they briefly put their arms down to fight the Japanese. And the Japanese are currently ranked 6th in this world in terms of standing army. Liberia, look at Liberia go. That's crazy, 1.6. Okay, so the second Sino-Japanese War is beginning. We've got the UK. We're dealing with the Great Depression. It's hard out here. USA is pretty low on the list. 1933, the rise of No-No Germany. Hitler has taken charge. The USSR is rebuilding back up. The world has no idea what's about to hit them. And obviously, in the beginning, once he takes charge, the big thing to note is he is now remilitarizing the Germans. During the Weimar Republic, there's all these restrictions, all these things. Now Germany's like, you know what? Screw that stupid Treaty of Versailles. Let's just not listen to it. And to his surprise, France and the UK were going to be like, yeah, whatever. We don't really care. We don't want another world war. And bam, so he's going to remilitarize the Rhineland pretty soon here. He's going to build back up. Later that year, the Nazis began rearmament and withdraw from the League of Nations. Look at Italy go again with this army. Man, Italy having such a big army, yet they just... Oh, it's because they're attacking Ethiopia. Or they're about to attack Ethiopia. Yeah, the Italians, they just didn't do too much in World War II, but for a brief second here, they have almost as big of an army as the USSR. That is crazy. That is so crazy. So 1936, the Hoi 4 start date. That's what we all know about this timeline. Afghanistan's still pretty high up there in terms of percentages. But yeah, Ethiopia's going to grow because the Italians are going to invade Ethiopia. The Italians are going to invade Ethiopia. So briefly, they were up there and now they're gone. Now they're all under the Italian Empire. Here's the new layout for World War II. And this is basically... All of these nations are going to be involved in World War II except for Turkey, not until the very end. Czechoslovakia, yes. Romania, yes. Yugoslavia, yes. Man, Afghanistan's impressive. I don't know what Afghanistan is doing over here. So, yeah, remilitarizing the Rhineland, defying the treaty. 1938, the annexation of Austria has occurred. So Austria wasn't even on the list. Germany, by 1938, is only at 1% standing army, but they have 700,000 men. That is crazy. 700,000 men. And this is... now, France is at 1.4%. But it just shows, I guess, how much more population Germany currently has. 1939 is the beginning of World War II. We didn't make a note of the Second Sino-Japanese War. But, yeah, they're fighting over there in Asia, which is why Japan's going to... they have to have a very big army for that. To take over the Chinese, they have to have a very big army. Bammo. Okay, so there's a non-aggression pact currently with the No-No Germans in the USSR. 2 million men overnight, and this is only 3% of total German population, so that's going to explode. Watch these percentages as we get to like 1943, 1944. Yes, bam. So they carved up Poland. We've 6 months, 8 months of the phony war. France is beginning to build back that army because they're kind of worried about what the Germans are going to do, but there hasn't been too much. It's 1940, and the French technically have a much bigger army, but they are not prepared for these German blitzkrieg strats. They are not prepared for how fast that German military has upgraded. France is thinking, oh, whatever, World War II is just going to be like World War I. No, it's not. It's going to be way faster, and everything's mechanized, everything's mobilized. They're able to cross hundreds of miles of territory, able to grab hundreds of miles of territory within a day, or 100 miles of territory within a day, at least. Nearly all of the world's countries participate, with many nations mobilizing all resources in pursuit of total war. It's 1940. Bam, France is dead. Boom, they've walked into Paris. It's 1941, and now the U.S. is going to be involved. And Switzerland is at 12%. This is so funny. Switzerland's at 12%. Famously, they stayed neutral, didn't even do anything. But they got it, because right now, at this point, they're surrounded by Axis members. They are surrounded with the Germans in the north and the Italians in the south. They are definitely freaking out. Look at the Australians go up, though, in terms of their stuff. Oh, Spanish state. So, yeah, Franco's in charge, but also famously neutral. Canada. So, we are going to separate the British Empire now, which I like. I do like that. Where is British Raj at? Are they going to be rising up? So, the U.S. is now involved. So, the U.S. is mobilizing a bunch of their troops. Look at this. Look at the significant drop-off. Obviously, the top 6 here are directly participating in World War II versus the nations that are not. Switzerland, Spain, Turkey, all remaining neutral. Romania did something. Okay, Canada did something. Sweden remained neutral. France isn't even really there. But man, what a massive drop-off. USA at 3%. Switzerland still at 12%. New Zealand's at 8%. That's crazy. That the British Empire mobilized 8% of all of New Zealand's population. I love the percentage breakdown because it really gives credit to some of the smaller nations. Canada's at 3%, which is also very impressive. The USSR was briefly up there, and then they dropped down again. They're at 4.8, mind you. So Operation Barbarossa begins. It's going to take another year before the Soviets can really fully mobilize again. NDH, which is fascist Croatia, they're doing horrific things down there in the Balkans. The USA, hell yeah. Oh my goodness, 5 million men. What a scary threat. I mean, you know, there's always arguments that the U.S. didn't do as much as the Soviets in World War II, but this is interesting seeing them have such a bigger standing army. Now, mind you, there's millions, there's hundreds of thousands of Soviets that are dying. So that is an aspect of it, 100%, 110%. But yeah, look at how huge that U.S. military is. And we're only at 6% of our total population. So Germany's actually dropping right now, dropping from 7%. Finland's very high because there was the Winter War, and then now Finland's currently helping out the no-no Germans. But don't worry, they'll stop. Canada's at 6%. Man, this is crazy. It's 1944. The war's wrapping up. Basically, the war's wrapping up. But Germany still has a massive army. Absolutely massive army. Now, geez, the Americans are at 11 million. Crazy. Here goes D-Day. So the USSR really beginning to mobilize now, though. We're also beginning to slow down with our stuff because we're now at 8%. Australia's at 8%. The UK is at 10%. Mongolia is at 10%. Why Mongolia? Oh, was there skirmishes with Japan? I think they were freaking out about Japan. Finland was at 5% briefly. Yeah, these are crazy numbers when they were unheard of in the 19th century. Switzerland's staying high. Mongolia is staying high. And here you go. World War II, 1945. Allied armies enter Germany, leading to the fall of Berlin and Hitler's death. Turkey joins in at the last second. China has defeated Japan. It's 1946, World War II's ended. This is why the USSR is the Cold War basically begins immediately. Arguably, the Cold War begins during World War II. But this is why the Europeans are very afraid of the USSR because the Red Army is twice as much as the UK, and the French don't even have 1 million men right now. It's peacetime. They probably could do more now. Maybe. They were kind of rebuilding at this time. So it's kind of a big deal. So, bam, we're going to restart the Communist Civil War. A ton more Chinese people are now fighting for the Communist side. And, yeah, that's why their armies are going to explode because you got two different Chinese sides fighting. Damn, the Japanese immediately with a really high army. Okay, the war ends as Japan surrenders for, those places. What is going on with Japan? So high. So Japan is watching currently what's going on in China and soon to be Korea. India's gained their independence. Bam, India, Pakistan. Lots of chaos with that partition. Israel's officially joined. They immediately jump out at 10%. I think Israel stays actually very, very high so far. So China's officially communist, and now that's going to spill over to a ton of the world, all their neighbors. It's going to eventually spill over to Vietnam and Korea. And then Indonesia's going to have to do horrible things to their communists to stop it from continuing to spill over. But it goes to Laos and Cambodia. But yeah, we're at the height. The USSR officially made their own nuke. So we're at the height of the Cold War. It's a technological battle currently happening because we think World War III is going to happen. And I always try to emphasize this because people forget that it feels like we see World War III as now like a 21st century event that might happen. But everyone at the time, and even all of us at the time, if you flash us back to 1950, We all and you don't tell us about what's about to happen. You know, if we don't know the future, we all are gonna predict that it's gonna be the end of the world. I mean, they were teaching kids all around America what to do in terms of a nuclear war. We all thought World War III was gonna. I mean, you see World War I happen, you see World War II happen. It's time. World War III is inevitable, right? And we're all gonna lose because we're all going to be evaporated by the bomb, essentially. Interesting that China's only at 3. Right now, we're fighting in Korea, which is why Korea is so high up in this list. But the Korean War is happening, and the Chinese are going to aid the North Koreans. Where are the North Koreans at? I just see the South Koreans. But yeah, there's going to be a ceasefire. Well, the war is going to continue, but yeah, South Korea is going to have to remain pretty high. Oh, here's North Korea at 3%. I see South Korea here. Did North Korea just not have that much population? That is fascinating. Where is North Korea? North Korea is not to be found, but yet they're at 3%. So they had an army under 100,000. Again, they were literally carried by China. China did not want a democratic or Western allied unified Korea under South Korea on their border. So, of course, China was going to step in for North Korea. That's crazy. Wow, I actually did not know that was the number breakdown. I mean, because like North Korea pushes South Korea all the way to Busan. That's basically Busan. Then America and allies come in, and a lot of the world comes in to help South Korea. And we push them all the way back to the Chinese border. That's when China goes in. And that's when Douglas MacArthur starts talking about the irradiated nuclear coal bait. He wants to nuke the shit out of China to stop them. But yeah, clearly China has a massive army. Vietnam officially begins, but it's mainly right now between the Vietnamese and the French. Communism is spreading all around the world. If I'm a capitalist at this time and I'm Western allied, I'm freaking the hell out. Because now communism is in all of the USSR, it's in all of China. We couldn't beat back completely them in Korea, and now there's more uprisings in Indochina, French Indochina. But yeah, this is the South Vietnamese. Taiwan is pretty high up there. Yeah, because right when the Chinese unified under the communists, so that's nationalist China that move over. Nationalist China starts freaking out like, oh crap, we is going to be in trouble. But we're probably going to get invaded more than likely. Luckily for them, they didn't, and they stay safe. But it's a worrisome time in the very beginning for Vietnam. Not that it's a worrisome time right now either. So yeah, we're supporting, NATO officially begins, it's 10 years after NATO, we're supporting the West, we're trying to make sure that France has a big enough army just in case the Red Army comes in. The UK is still being rebuilt. I mean, it's a tough time in Europe at this time, but the Marshall Plan, trying to get that stuff up. I think Greece and Turkey are about to join NATO very soon enough. Israel's at 3%. Cuba Missile Crisis, bam, Cuba has gone now communist. So that's going to be a thing, boom, JFK, I almost just said RFK. JFK is not doing too good. Actually, he's dead. It's 1962. And we're about to have a little space race. East Bangladesh is going to be lost. So that's East Pakistan is going to be just known as Bangladesh. Look at as the rise of India occurs. And China is building up that standing army because we're sending so many men to Vietnam. Especially in 1965 and later. It's going to get really rough right here. USSR is just kind of watching at this time. Let's see. There's Mexico Olympics. There's Western Germany. They're starting to build back up. I believe Western Germany is in NATO too. 1969, the Summer of Love occurs. Indonesia is obviously independent from the Dutch. The U.S. begins to withdraw in 1973, and obviously Vietnam falls to communism. But man, 5% of all of South Vietnam's population is mobilized right now and is standing army. Versus North Vietnam, that's only at 2%. No wonder they were going to win. It's crazy. I think at the very least, the U.S. thought at the very least we could have another Korean Peninsula situation where the peninsula is divided, but no, we didn't even get that. It was just a 100% victory by the North Vietnamese. They took everything back over. Crazy. Turkey's pretty high up there. Turkey to counteract the USSR. Boom, here goes North Vietnam. North Vietnam, really? Oh, the UAE at 3%? Why is UAE up so high? So South Vietnam is going to not even exist by 1973. China is exploding, and we're seeing a rupture, a schism, you could say, inside of the communist world between China and the USSR. And they're going to feel like each other is a little bit more threats That's for sure, since they can't really figure out what to do communism-wise. North Korea finally rebuilding. North Korea is going to be very high up on the list, and North Korea is not going to drop, I think, from the rest of this percentages. We won't see North Korea drop, because they got to. They got to have something high. North Korea and South Korea actually side by side right here. The Iran-Iraq war with Saddam. Iraq invades Iran. Very brutal, brutal conflict in the 80s. Also, we're going to see the USSR invade Afghanistan. Franco's no longer in charge of Spain. Taiwan still has a pretty high army. Iraq is growing and growing. Where the heck is Iran at? So one of the deadliest conflicts post-World War II. It sees chemical weapons. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's brutal. Reagan is charged in the 80s. He's ramping back up the Cold War. He's going to try to put his boot on the throat of the Soviets and defeat the communist world. And that is exactly what happened. After 8 years of devastation, the war ends in 1988 without a clear victor. Very true. It's 1988, and George Bush's dad's going to take charge. Iran's going up there. The Afghanistan war has bankrupted the USSR, along with other things. Chernobyl is going to happen. They're going to let in pizza, and it's going to be over for them. Okay, so unification of Germany. Watch West Germany turns into just Germany. Really, their numbers didn't change all that much in terms of standing army. But yeah, fall of the Soviet Union, economic struggles, and demands for freedom weaken. There was this big moment in time in the late 80s, early 90s where like protests were happening all around the communist world. The Chinese barely avoided the same thing that could have happened to the Soviets. The dissolvement. The USSR didn't make it. The Chinese stopped the Tiananmen Square and all the student protesting things and things like that. 1992, Ukraine becomes a country. Belarus becomes a country. A ton of countries just became independent. The Baltics. And now the USSR doesn't know what else to do. So they're like, hey, how about let's go to war with Iraq? I wouldn't say it's a massive war like this, though. It's Operation Desert Storm. It kind of stops. It restarts again in 2003. But yeah. Basically unchecked, unbelievable power out of the USA. Oh, the fall of Yugoslavia, which is why Bosnia is here at 2%. North Korea is at 5%. So North Korea and Israel, they're not moving from these spots. They is not moving from these spots. Years of fighting and insurgency causes heavy casualties and instability. Okay, Myanmar has entered the list. Myanmar has a big population. There's so much I still want to say about this, but we're getting pretty late into this video. But look at all the different players here in the Middle East. And to see, Eritrea at 5%. To see the Israelis, Israel was surrounded by Saddam in Iraq. With where did Saddam go? Well, Iran is still a bigger, with 500,000. Iran is still a player. Egypt with 500,000, and they're surrounded by all these forces. Even Bahrain and Oman, and they did their thing. Okay, so first we go after Afghanistan, and then we're gonna go after Iraq. Because why? I don't know, man. But yeah, I'm bringing that point up because it's like, damn, the Israelis, they play their cards right. Because now Saddam is no more. Libya, we obviously throw Gaddafi out in 2011 from Libya. Syria is officially not ruled over by Assad. It's crazy. And I've been reviewing a lot of videos about that. Oh, Colombia briefly entered the list. Man, look at how low the UK just dropped. But the USA has 1.5 because we're all over the Middle East right now. China's still very, very big, though. The rise of China officially begins. We're going to have the Great Recession. China's a huge threat to us. Look at all these huge armies, and they're not necessarily allied to the U.S., that's for sure. South Korea has to have a big army again because there would be possibly another war with North Korea, and it would entirely be a naval thing. Or sorry, not a naval thing. It'd be an army thing, but yeah. Israel did drop to 2%. Brunei is a pretty small country. Armenia is a pretty small country. Russia's going to take Crimea. But Russia's going to remobilize. How late does this video go? To 2000? Okay, good, because we're going to see Russia begin. So this is the first part of the war. And then they're going to try again. Or they will do it again. Look at how many nations. South Asia just has so many people. It's actually just crazy. Because Myanmar, Sri Lanka sometimes joins in. Obviously, Pakistan and India. Needless to say, 2017... things are changing. Great Recession is definitely over, but now we're definitely threatened by China, that's for sure. And bam. So we have the COVID pandemic. What does this do to standing armies all around the world? It actually just rises up. Well, Pakistan's dropping a little bit. And here goes Ukraine, because they need to. They weren't even ranked And now they're at 6%. So their percentage, I'm pretty sure percentage of their population, we should see them pop up in the right. Wow, look at this. Look at Ukraine in 2023 having almost the same standing army as Russia. Ukraine mounts strong resistance with widespread international support. Wow, they actually aren't even in the percentage still. They're not even at 1% of their population. I guess that does make sense. Does that make sense? Ukraine only has a population of like 40 million. And if they have a million, is my math wrong here? I thought they should be above 1%. Well, anyway, something to just keep in mind. Yeah, but the Russian army, it takes always Russia a minute to mobilize, but yeah, they're at 1.2 now. So the standing army, they're starting to outnumber Ukraine, that's for sure. But we're living in very different times. It's 2025. I can't wait. It's just kind of fun to look at the future and see how is our story going to change? What's going to happen in the next 25 years? You know, I just went over like the whole block of everything from the 1800s to right now, how we got to this point today. And it's like, man, I want to know what's going to happen in the future. Or do I? Should I not say that? Maybe, actually, we shouldn't say that because something could be really, really bad. Big thanks to my patrons this month. If you want your name here, check that Patreon link in the description down below. Never change Drew unless you want to. We need a Drew bobblehead figurine. Petition for Drew
Alexander
to make
the Terrible,
ASMR
Connor
Tingles
Pavlik,
version 2.
Frederick Tiblin,
King Bear Hayes.
Lord Track,
Luxembourg Lover.
Miglu the Goat,
Nolan.
Nord Tyrol,
Tambrin.
and William.